The Black Pearl, Part 2. Chapter 14. The Witch of Tours. The forests beyond Valmont. Midnight to morning. Mark woke with a gasp, blood pounding in his ears, lips dry, throat burning. He didn't recognize the room. Or the smell. Herbs. Smoke. Iron. Something like earth and something older. He tried to sit up, but a hand pressed gently to his chest. "Careful," said Anais, her face pale but steady beside him. "You were poisoned." "Did I die?" he croaked. "Almost," she said. "But we're not done running yet." He glanced around. They were in a cottage, bare walls, strange symbols carved into the ceiling beams, mirrors covered with black cloth. Candles burned in a circle around the bed. A raven watched them from a rafter. Then he saw her, the witch. She was ancient, but not frail. Tall, with a back like stone and eyes like knives. Her hair was silver tangled with feathers, her hands stained with ink and blood. She stood in the corner, grinding powder into a bowl carved from bone. Her name was Melis. The villagers called her the Witch of Tours. Most thought she was dead. Most wanted her to be. Anais had found her through desperate whispers, following markings carved into the trees, trading her last heirloom ring for passage across the cursed woods. Now, Melis turned. "So, you brought me that." She pointed to the pearl, which Anais had placed in the center of the floor inside a salt circle. "We need to know what it is," Anais said. The witch laughed, a rasping sound that shook the rafters. "You think it's a jewel? A curse? A prophecy?" She approached the circle, eyes glowing with recognition and disgust. "This is a wound, torn from a dying queen's soul, fed by blood, made to last." Mark sat up, head pounding. "Cleopatra." Melis nodded. "She did not die quietly. She bound her rage, her betrayal, her love, all into that thing." Anais stepped forward. "Then what does it want?" Melis looked at her for a long time. "It wants what it was made from. Love, turned inside out. Devotion, betrayed. It wants you to choose, then it wants you to suffer." Anais clenched her fists. "Why us?" "Because you looked," the witch said. "Because it saw you first." She stepped into the salt circle. The candles flared. The pearl pulsed. Melis placed both hands on it and screamed. Her head whipped back. Blood poured from her nose. The salt blackened at her feet. Her voice deepened, becoming two voices. One ancient, one young. Words spilled from her mouth. "Whosoever betrays love shall wear their own face in ruin." Then she collapsed. Mark rushed forward. Anais grabbed his arm. "Wait." Too late. The witch gasped, shaking. Then, her eyes opened. "Cleopatra's final act," she whispered. "She cursed the pearl to reveal betrayal, to punish it, to reflect it. Every time it's passed on, it shows the face of the one whose love has turned to rot." Anais paled. "What happens if we betray each other?" Melis looked at her, solemn. "You'll see your own face burn." Outside, a storm had begun to gather again. But inside, the pearl sat quietly, dark and still, waiting. Chapter 15. Betrayal in the Forest. The woods near Tours. Dusk. They left the witch's cottage at dusk. Melis had warned them. "Go now, before the pearl decides your fate for you." And so, with nothing but a stolen horse, a torn map, and the pearl glowing like a coal between them, Mark and Anais rode into the woods, quiet, tense, unsure of the path ahead. They didn't speak much. The witch's words hung between them like a sword. "Whosoever betrays love shall wear their own face in ruin." What did it mean? Could the pearl tell when love soured? Did it punish you? Or just reflect the punishment you deserved? Anais didn't ask. Mark didn't answer. They made camp near a river bend, deep enough in the forest that no soldiers would find them. Mark gathered firewood while Anais sat by the water, running her fingers through the grass, clutching the pearl so tightly it left an imprint in her palm. He watched her from the tree-line, chest tight. He knew what she was thinking. He was thinking it too. The pearl had shown him her face in dreams. Not just once. Night after night. Anais screaming in a burning hall of mirrors, blood on her hands, a crown at her feet, Mark lying dead beside her. He hadn't told her. He couldn't. Because now, when she touched the pearl, it didn't show his face anymore. It showed something else. A child. Before they could eat, before they could sleep, they heard hooves. Mark cursed under his breath. Bounty hunters. Anais stood instantly, gripping the dagger Isabeau had dropped during the escape. They were surrounded in minutes. 6 men in black leathers. One with a scar down his jaw, another with an axe longer than Mark's arm. The leader dismounted first, bald, grinning, eyes like rusted nails. "No sudden moves," he said. "We're only here for the pearl." Mark stepped forward, slowly. "You can have it," he said. "Just let her go." Anais spun. "What are you doing?" "Trust me," he murmured. He reached into his coat, drew the pearl from beneath his shirt, and threw it into the woods. The bounty hunters turned instantly, some running after it, others shouting. But Anais knew. That wasn't the real pearl. She reached for the true one, but the moment she turned, rough hands grabbed her. Mark lunged toward her, but a boot caught his ribs, slamming him to the ground. "Don't fight," one of them hissed. "You'll just bruise prettier." Anais screamed. Mark broke free, tackled the closest man, but was overwhelmed. A fist cracked against his skull. He fell, blood dripping from his brow. The leader drew a blade. "Let's make this simple," he said to Anais. "You give me the pearl, or I carve it out of him." Anais's hands shook. She looked at Mark, at the pearl, at the forest. Then she made her choice. She dropped the real pearl at the man's feet. "Let him go," she said. He smiled. But the moment he bent down to grab it, the pearl flashed. Wrong hands, wrong heart. The man screamed. His skin sizzled where he touched it. His face twisted. It became bloated, black-eyed, warped, like the reflection Anais had once seen in Gerard's mirror. He fell backward into the river, convulsing, smoking. The other bounty hunters ran. Mark staggered to his feet, eyes wide. "You gave it to him." "I didn't betray you," she said quickly. "I traded it for you." Mark stared at her. Something deep and aching moved behind his eyes. The pearl lay in the mud, untouched now, cold again. Mark picked it up. It showed his reflection, but for the first time in days. It smiled. Chapter 16, The Queen's Game. Paris, the Louvre Palace, 3 nights later. Anais hadn't seen the trap until it was too late. 1 minute, she and Mark were riding through the forest, the pearl wrapped tightly in a cloth and hidden in her cloak. The next, smoke bombs, arrows, screams in the dark, and men in black dragging her off the horse. Mark fought like a madman, but they outnumbered him 10-1. She never saw what happened to him after that. Now, Anais stood inside the palace once again, back in the gilded halls of Paris, as if nothing had changed. Except everything had. Queen Catherine de Medici sat on her throne like a spider in a jeweled web. Her fingers drummed softly on the armrest. Her gaze cut like ice. "Anais," she said, smiling faintly. "You look so well." Anais didn't reply. Catherine tilted her head. "You've caused me quite the inconvenience. But I admire initiative." Anais's wrists were shackled, but her spine remained straight. "Where's Mark?" she asked. Catherine gave a light shrug. "Alive. For now. Depends on how well you behave. I want to see him." "Oh, I'm sure you do," the Queen said sweetly. "But I have a better idea." She rose. "Let's play a game." The guards escorted Anais to a long corridor of mirrors, tall, gilded, flawless. She recognized it. The Mirror Hall. A place where royal illusions were rehearsed. A place where no lie ever stayed hidden for long. The pearl was waiting on a pedestal at the center. Anais stared at it. "What do you want from me?" Catherine stepped beside her, calm and deliberate. "I want you to see what I saw, what it shows. I want you to understand why France needs the pearl." "You want power." Catherine's smile never wavered. "I want clarity, truth, control." She reached into her gown and pulled out a small silver mirror. Its back was engraved with the Medici seal. She handed it to Anais. "Look." Anais did. At first, she saw her own face, then it twisted. Black eyes, twisted mouth. Her throat slit, blood pooling at her feet. She dropped the mirror, trembling. The Queen clapped once. "Do you see now? It shows us the cost of betrayal, of weakness." Catherine moved to the pedestal and picked up the pearl. "I look into this every night," she whispered. "I've seen kingdoms fall, lovers lie, heirs turn to monsters. But not once, have I looked and not learned something." Anais stared at her. "And what did you see when you looked last night?" Catherine hesitated. Then her jaw clenched. "I saw myself." Anais's breath caught. Laughing, the Queen turned, eyes sharp. "So tell me, Anais, what do you think that means? Anais didn't answer. The queen stepped closer. You are not a prisoner, she said softly. You're bait. Anais froze. For who? The queen smiled. Mark. Far below the palace, in a locked cellar, Mark clawed at the wall. His lip was bleeding. One eye was nearly swollen shut. But he was breathing. He had escaped worse. And he still had the fake pearl. The real one was with Anais. And he knew, somehow, that she was in the middle of something bigger than a throne. He closed his eyes and whispered to the darkness. Just hold on. Chapter 17, The Mirror Chamber. The Louvre Palace, the heart of the East Wing, midnight. They led Anais in chains. 2 guards. 1 silent servant. And behind them, Queen Catherine, wrapped in black silk like a funeral whisper, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. The hallway was quiet, too quiet. No footsteps, but theirs echoed off the stone. The walls closed in with cold familiarity. Anais had walked these halls once in a gown of pearls, promised to a noble name. Now she wore blood on her cuffs and fear in her breath. They stopped at a door with no handle. The queen pressed her palm against the wood. It clicked, unlocked itself. The mirror chamber. The room had no windows. No light of its own. Just a circle of mirrors, each one 7 feet high, rimmed in tarnished gold, angled inward like witnesses to a secret trial. In the center stood the black pearl. Alone, on a marble pedestal. One mirror was different. It was matte, fogged, refusing to reflect. Anais stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind her. She turned, panic rising. Do not scream, said Catherine's voice from beyond the wall. There is no one here to help you now. Anais's shackles fell open, hitting the floor with a cold clang. She was free to move, but not to leave. The pearl pulsed. She stepped toward it slowly, each step echoing louder than the last. Her own reflection followed her from every direction. 20 Anaises. 20 sets of eyes. 20 faces. But none of them smiled. She stood before the pedestal. The pearl was cold, silent, waiting. She reached for it. The mirrors flared to life. One by one, they began to show not her, but people she knew. Mark, laughing, bleeding, running. Gerard, screaming, his face melting. Her mother, dead in a bed of roses. Catherine, standing tall, eyes black as ink. Then, her. But it wasn't her. Not anymore. Her own face stared back, twisted. Not broken, rotten. Skin flayed. Eyes bleeding. Mouth whispering things she couldn't hear. She staggered back. Only the fogged mirror remained unchanged. Until it cracked. A hairline fracture. Then another. Anais turned, trembling. Catherine entered the chamber. She held no guards. No weapons. Just one command. Look, the queen said. Anais shook her head. Look. Catherine grabbed her by the wrist and dragged her to the fogged mirror. And there, finally, it cleared. Anais saw herself. Whole. But not alone. Behind her, Mark. And a child. Small. Smiling. Anais gasped. What is this? She whispered. Catherine stared at it, horrified. That wasn't what it showed me. The mirror shifted again. Now Anais stood alone. Crowned. Weeping. The pearl levitated from the pedestal, floating between them. Then it dropped. Shattered the marble. Every mirror in the chamber shook. Catherine screamed and backed away. Anais stepped forward, hand trembling, and picked up the pearl. It burned in her palm, but didn't harm her. The queen's eyes widened. You saw it, she breathed. You saw hope. Anais turned to her. No, she said softly. I saw what I'm fighting for. And Catherine, just for a moment, looked afraid. Chapter 18, Catherine's Collapse. The Louvre Palace, 2 hours before dawn. The mirror chamber was silent now. Anais emerged alone, the black pearl gripped tight in her fist. Her gown was torn, her face pale, but her eyes burned with clarity. She didn't ask for permission to leave. The guards at the chamber door looked at each other, then stepped aside. Word spread quickly through the palace. The queen is unwell. The girl walked out. The queen stayed in. Inside the chamber, Queen Catherine stood frozen in the center. The mirrors whispered, shook, reflected only her, 1,000 versions of her, each worse than the last. She spun in place, breath ragged. Show me something else, she rasped. Show me my children. Show me my throne. But the reflections only laughed. One mirror shattered. Then another. She screamed and hurled her silver-hand mirror into the wall. It bounced back and hit her shoulder with a clang. Blood bloomed at her collarbone, staining the royal silk. She didn't notice. "I gave you everything," she hissed at the pearl's absence. "I wore you. I believe." The guards outside heard the scream. They did not go in. Elsewhere in the palace, Isabeau waited. She stood in the queen's solar, hands clasped behind her back, eyes scanning the tapestry of Catherine's rule. Maps, letters, threats signed in invisible ink. She had been loyal to the queen for a decade. She had murdered for her. But now, she saw something shifting, something rotting. And Anais had walked out holding the pearl. That meant something. Isabeau wasn't ready to choose sides. But she was ready to move. She slipped into the hall and vanished into the servants' corridor. Toward the dungeons. Toward Mark. The queen was still screaming when her chamber doors burst open. Not by force. By fear. Her body collapsed to the floor. She clutched her face, sobbing, shrieking. "The mirrors won't stop," she moaned. "They won't stop showing me." The head steward backed away. Summoned the royal physician. "No," she cried. "No one must see me like this." She crawled to the mirror nearest the pedestal, her fingernails scraping the glass. It showed her again. Only this time, it wasn't a reflection. It was a copy. Catherine, eyes black, lips smiling. The queen gasped. The image leaned forward from within the mirror and laughed. In the halls above, Anais didn't look back. She ran until the gold became stone, and the stone turned cold. She had one purpose now. Find Mark and finish what they started. The queen was breaking. The pearl was watching. And the game was nearly over. Chapter 19. The Burning Ballroom. The Louvre Palace. The Winter Masquerade. Nightfall. The ballroom pulsed with candlelight and deception. Tonight, Queen Catherine hosted a spectacle. A masquerade unlike any in recent memory. Nobles in bejeweled masks and powdered wigs flooded the gilded chamber, their laughter a brittle mask of civility. Music played, violins, flutes, drums that beat like a war march. But everyone knew this night was not about celebration. It was about power. And the queen's final play. Catherine descended the grand staircase in a gown woven with obsidian thread, her crown glinting with black sapphires, her mask shaped like a serpent. She moved like a phantom, gliding through the crowd, eyes searching every face. But she wasn't truly watching the nobles. She was watching the mirrors. They lined the ballroom walls tonight, hundreds of them. Some framed in gold, others in silver. All positioned to reflect her from every angle. Each guest had been chosen. Each step choreographed. Tonight, she would bind the pearl to her soul forever. And no one would stop her. In the servant halls beneath the palace, Anais moved like a ghost, her borrowed mask clutched in one hand, the pearl hidden beneath her cloak. She had found Mark, bruised, weak, but alive, thanks to Isabeau. The poisoner had made no grand speech. She simply unlocked the door, handed Anais a key, and whispered, "One throne will fall. One truth will rise. Choose well." Now Mark walked beside her, wounded but burning with defiance. He wore a stolen mask shaped like a lion, and a dagger he didn't intend to keep hidden. The ritual began at the stroke of 10. The queen stood in the center of the ballroom as the music stopped. A hush fell. She raised her hands. "The mirrors," she said, "are not decoration." She snapped her fingers. Servants pulled black cloth from a pedestal at the center of the ballroom. There, cradled in a cushion of velvet, was the pearl. Except it wasn't. The queen didn't know. Mark had switched it hours ago. Anais slipped into the crowd, masked and invisible. She locked eyes with Mark from across the floor. It was time. Catherine raised her arms again. "Tonight," she declared, "I bind my will to truth, to vision, to the one object that has never lied to me." She reached for the pearl. The crowd leaned in. Her fingers closed around the stone. And for one horrible moment, nothing happened. Then, Mark struck. He leapt from the shadows, tore the fake pearl from her hand, and held the real one high. The mirrors exploded in light. Catherine screamed. Anais ripped off her mask and rushed to the pedestal. "Now!" Mark shouted. They slammed the pearl down onto the stone. It cracked the pedestal, and the mirrors around them shattered, one by one, until the ballroom was a storm of glass and fire. Candles fell. Curtains ignited. The masquerade became a battlefield. Nobles ran, screaming, clawing at masks that wouldn't come off. Their reflections turned against them, twisted and wrong. Catherine dropped to her knees, her crown falling. "Stop it," she sobbed. "Stop it. I gave you everything." The pearl pulsed once, twice, then went still. Anais grabbed Mark's hand. They ran. Through smoke. Through flames. Through chaos. Behind them, the palace burned, not with fire, but with truth. And in the heart of the ballroom, Catherine knelt among the shards of her reign, staring into broken mirrors that refused to look back. Chapter 20. The Reflection That Changed. The palace courtyard, moments after the ballroom fell silent. Smoke curled into the night sky. Screams had faded. The nobles had fled. The fire had burned itself into a memory. Now only silence remained. Broken mirrors and bloodied lace scattered across marble tiles like remnants of a dream turned nightmare. Anais stood in the courtyard, her breath ragged, Mark at her side. His shoulder was bruised, his coat slashed open, but he was alive. They had the pearl, and it was changing. It no longer pulsed with menace, no longer hissed with the whispers of the past. Now, in Anais's hand, it felt warm. She held it up to the moonlight, and for the first time, it glowed. Softly, not black, not void, but luminous, like silver ink swirling beneath glass. She turned to Mark, about to speak, then froze. The pearl showed something. Not a warning, not a curse. A child, small, wide-eyed, hair the color of winter wheat, standing between two shadows, one her, one Mark. Mark saw it too. "What is that?" he whispered. Anais stared, throat tight. "It's showing us the future." Mark stepped closer, jaw clenched. "How?" Anais didn't answer. She didn't know. But the pearl wasn't feeding on fear anymore. It wasn't echoing betrayal or death. It was showing possibility. Inside the throne room, Queen Catherine sat slumped against the marble wall, her hands shaking. The crown lay beside her, forgotten. Her mask was gone. The mirrors in the chamber were all shattered, except for one. It stood intact, tall, smooth, and cold. Catherine looked into it. Her reflection stared back. But this time it laughed. She screamed and smashed her hand into the glass. It didn't break. It rippled. She backed away, mouth open, shaking her head. "I made you," she whispered. "You obey me." But the mirror was done obeying. And so was the pearl. Back in the courtyard, Anais wrapped the pearl in cloth and tucked it close to her chest. "We can't stay," she said. "Not here. Not now." Mark nodded. "Where will we go?" Anais looked to the horizon. "Somewhere the pearl can't be used. Somewhere no queen, no crown, no lie can reach it." Mark smiled faintly. "You're talking like we survived." "We did more than survive," she said. "We won." "No," Anais whispered, looking again at the glowing orb. "We changed it." The pearl pulsed once, then rested. Its purpose had shifted. It no longer punished love. It protected it. For now. Chapter 21. Catherine's Reckoning. The Inner Sanctum, the Queen's private sanctuary, 1 hour before dawn. Queen Catherine de Medici no longer wept. She no longer raged. She sat in the center of her private sanctuary, surrounded by the last of her power, cracked relics, scorched scrolls, and the broken remnants of the Medici dynasty's illusions. Her gown was torn, her hair undone, her eyes, wide, red, and hollow. The fire hadn't reached this room, but something worse had. The truth. And now, the mirrors were speaking again. Not in voices. In visions. Her children. Elizabeth. Charles. Henry. One by one, they appeared before her in the fragments of shattered glass, each reflection showing what she had cost them. The price of her schemes. Her poisons. Her obsessions. The weight of the black pearl. Charles's reflection spoke first. His mouth moved, but no sound came. Catherine leaned closer, heart pounding. He mouthed a single word. "Why?" She staggered back, hands trembling. "No," she whispered. "You were all too weak. I did what I had to." The next reflection smiled. Her own, but not as she was now. This Catherine stood tall, cold, laughing, wearing the black pearl like a crown. And behind her, the throne sat empty. The door creaked open. Isabeau stepped inside, silent as always. The queen didn't turn. "I failed," Catherine whispered. Isabeau said nothing. Catherine slowly rose, one hand dragging along the wall. I saw my end. I saw myself burn, and I still thought I could outplay it. She turned now, face pale, voice soft as death. I thought I could change what the pearl showed me. Isabeau nodded once. That was never the game. No, the queen said. It wasn't. She took something from her sleeve. A shard of mirror. Long. Razor-edged. Still glinting with silver. Isabeau tensed, but did not move. Catherine stared into the shard, saw her reflection one last time, and smiled. I was never meant to survive this, was I? The pearl had never lied. Only reflected. You still have your voice, your majesty, Isabeau said. You can choose how the story ends. Catherine laughed bitterly. No. That choice was made long ago. She dropped the mirror shard to the floor, then stepped forward. Out of the sanctuary. Out of her reign. And for the first time in her life, she did not look back. At dawn, the servants entered the throne room and found the crown lying on the marble floor. Beside it, the queen's signet ring. No note. No speech. No scream. Just silence. The court gathered in fear. But Isabeau was already gone, following two fugitives who carried a glowing pearl and the power to rewrite fate. Chapter 22. The Curse Lifts. The southern coast of France. A secluded cliffside, dawn. Salt wind tore through the cliffs as waves crashed below like a heartbeat. Ancient, relentless, free. Anais stood near the edge, the black pearl resting in her open palm. It no longer felt like a weapon, no longer burned, no longer whispered. It simply was. Still, quiet, waiting. Mark stood behind her, bruised but standing, a satchel over his shoulder and a stolen coat wrapped around them both. The horizon bled orange and pink. For the first time in days, weeks, it felt like morning could mean something again. Do you feel it? She asked. Mark nodded. It's different. The pearl had changed. The reflections no longer twisted. The faces no longer screamed. And Anais no longer feared it. They had fled Paris in the dead of night, helped by Isabeau, who left them with a simple message. I've served enough crowns. I choose you now. Not for what you are, but what you carry. She'd given them safe passage through a royal checkpoint, burned their trail in the records, and vanished like a shadow with no master. Now, Mark and Anais had reached the place Melis once described, a cliff where ancient queens were buried in silence. A place no throne could claim. They lit a small fire, ate bread, didn't speak, until the pearl pulsed once in Anais's hand. And then, it dimmed. Its darkness softened to gray, then silver, then clear. A breath caught in her throat. I think it's letting go, she said. Mark stepped closer. What do we do with it? She turned to him. Her hand closed around the pearl. We don't destroy it. He frowned. Why not? Because it isn't cursed anymore, she said quietly. It's finished. Mark hesitated. Are you sure? She nodded. And then she did something strange. She pressed the pearl to her lips and whispered something neither he nor the wind could hear. The pearl glowed once, then went still. Far away, in the ruins of the queen's mirror chamber, the last standing mirror shattered, spontaneously, violently, as if a bond had finally been broken. The shards scattered across the floor, each one blank. The curse was over. Anais took one final look at the pearl, then turned to Mark and placed it in his hand. He stared at her, confused. Are you sure? She smiled. No, she whispered. But I trust you. He leaned in, forehead to hers. And for the first time, neither of them saw a reflection. Only each other. The curse was not destroyed. It was satisfied. Chapter 23. The Lover's Escape. Marseille docks, 3 days later. The docks stank of salt, tar, and sweat. But to Anais and Mark, it smelled like freedom. They stood shoulder to shoulder in the shadows of stacked crates, watching the tide roll in beneath a sky the color of bruised steel. Their clothes were plain now, peasant cotton, sun-bleached cloaks, boots worn down by miles of walking. The pearl was hidden, wrapped in silk and stitched into the lining of Anais's bag. No one chasing them knew where it was. No one knew where they were. Except Isabeau. And Isabeau had vanished. The ship moored at the far end of the harbor was a battered merchant vessel bound for Corsica. It had no noble sigils, no guards, no gilded deck. But its captain accepted gold without questions and offered silence in return. Mark had made the arrangements. Anais had made the decision. They wouldn't run forever, but they would run now, far from kings, courts, and mirrors that watched from behind veils of smoke and prophecy. They walked the gangplank together. Mark turned once, scanning the crowd. No guards. No black-cloaked figures. No poison masks. Only seagulls, ropes creaking, and fishermen yelling in Corsican. "You think she'll follow us?" he asked. Anais didn't answer for a moment. Then, "No. Catherine's done chasing ghosts." Mark grinned. "What about you?" "I'm chasing something else," she said. He raised an eyebrow. She reached into her cloak and showed him the pearl, now dull and soft, like sea glass smoothed by time. "We hide it," she said. "Far from any throne. Far from anyone who'd use it. Like you and me," he teased. She smiled faintly. "Especially you." Below deck, their cabin was small, barely room for 2 beds and a cracked mirror nailed to the wall. Anais covered the mirror with a cloth. Mark raised an eyebrow. "Still afraid?" "No," she said. "Just done listening." They sat together on the narrow bed, her head on his shoulder, the ship rocking gently beneath them. Outside, the captain shouted orders. Sails unfurled. The wind caught, and France disappeared behind them in fog and foam. That night, Anais dreamt of water. Not drowning, floating. The pearl sank slowly beneath dark waves, farther and farther, until it vanished into silence. And with it, everything that had once tried to own her. When she woke, Mark was asleep beside her. She kissed his temple and smiled. They hadn't won a kingdom, but they had stolen something far more dangerous. Freedom. Chapter 24, The Pearl Sinks. Off the Corsican coast, midnight, 1 week later. The sea was black glass. Stars shimmered above like distant eyes, and the moon cut a silver path across the waves. The merchant vessel rocked gently in the tide, anchored just off the rugged coast of Corsica, far from ports, far from maps, far from France. Anais stood at the stern, wrapped in a wool cloak, the wind pulling at her curls. The silk pouch in her hand held the pearl. It no longer pulsed, no longer whispered, but it was still watching. Behind her, Mark approached in silence. He didn't speak, he didn't need to. They had both known since they boarded the ship that this moment would come. Anais opened the pouch. The pearl slid into her palm, dull now, no longer dark, but faded like something that had lived too long and longed for rest. "Are you sure?" Mark asked. She nodded. "I don't want to be its next queen, and I don't want to wait for the next one to find it." They stood at the railing, waves crashing below. Mark leaned forward. "Any last words?" Anais considered that, then said softly, "Thank you for choosing me. For not running." Mark smirked. "I didn't have a choice. You had the pearl, remember?" She laughed quietly. And then, together, they let it go. The pearl arced through the air. It hit the surface with a whisper. No splash, just a kiss of silence. And it sank. Down, down, down. The silver light swallowed it whole. They waited. But there was no explosion. No ghostly scream. No divine sign. Only stillness. The sea exhaled. Anais closed her eyes, and for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, her mind cleared. The echo of the pearl, its curse, the visions, it was gone. Back below deck, they packed in silence. No more running. No more questions. Just escape. Tomorrow, they'd disembark in a village no one remembered, where they'd trade gold for land and lies for quiet. Anais placed the stitched pouch back into her coat pocket, empty now. She would keep it, just as a reminder. Mark took her hand. "No regrets?" he asked. She looked out over the sea once more. "No. We buried a curse tonight. That has to count for something." Mark smiled. "Then tomorrow we start over." She nodded. "Tomorrow," she whispered. And together, they walked away from the railing, leaving the sea to keep its secret. Chapter 25, The Reflection in the Waves. Corsican shoreline, 1 year later. Waves whispered over sun-bleached sand as the tide rolled in, slow and steady. It was morning, warm, golden, quiet. A little girl ran along the shore, chasing foam and scattered shells, her laughter light as gull feathers in the wind. She was no older than 5, barefoot, freckled. Her dark curls bounced as she stopped suddenly, drawn to something glinting in the surf. Half buried in wet sand, it waited. Small, smooth. She crouched, brushing away the seaweed and sand. It was a pearl. Black, but not quite. Not as dark as it once had been. It shimmered now, like ink spilled on silver. Like memory dipped in moonlight. The girl picked it up. It was warm. She tilted her head curiously and brought it closer to her face. No one told her to be afraid. No stories warned her of curses, or queens, or firebound reflections. And so she smiled at it. And the pearl smiled back. From the waves, Anais watched. She stood farther up the beach, a basket on her arm, hair tied back with a blue ribbon. Her face paled as she recognized the shape in the child's hand. She took a single step forward, but stopped. Mark emerged from the trees, calling out, "Lena, breakfast." The little girl grinned, clutched the pearl, and ran to him. He lifted her into his arms, twirled her once, and turned back toward the cottage nestled beneath the cliffs. Anais stood still. The sea washed over her feet. She looked down. There, reflected in the shallows, was herself, and beside her, a child. Not a vision, not a curse, just a life. One she chose. She glanced toward the horizon, where the waves rolled endlessly toward forgotten shores. The pearl had been satisfied once. But satisfaction doesn't last forever. Not with something that remembers everything. Anais turned and walked back to her family. Behind her, the sea took another breath. And waited. Across every empire, every forgotten age, stories still whisper. If this tale stirred your spirit, leave a like to honor the echoes of the past. Share your thoughts in the comments. Every voice weaves a new legend into the sands of time. And subscribe to our YouTube channel Historical Fantasy Stories, where myths walk beside history, and every discovery changes the world. The next forgotten legend is waiting to be found.